Hello everyone, I'm Kissy. I wanted to come here and have a candid conversation today. I don't know if it's going to lead to a reading. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I'm being guided to speak upon my some of my experiences on my spiritual journey. So please, if you don't mind, I would like to share that. If you're interested in my perspective, simply based on my journey, my personal journey, the examples and the most important lessons I think I've learned in regards to being alive at this time, being here at this time, today's lifestyle versus what it's been. And by that I mean, the spiritual path that I guess to some is elusive. And to me, is the spiritual path is truly honoring your spirit. And when you have a connection to God, this isn't something that is, it's not a pattern that's given to you and you say, okay, thanks, I'll follow this routine and this will be my spiritual path. That's not this. It's not, oh, I can do whatever I want, because if I believe in the God that I want to believe in, then it's going to cater to my needs, and whatever I want, I get. That's not what this is. It's when you know better, you do better. And that should be the measure of your growth. How many times have you done something with the same results and be like, yeah, this isn't working. Okay, this has to change. Okay, I can't change the outside world, but I can change myself. So you change yourself. And you change into a version of yourself that no longer falls into that trap, whatever that trap is. Whether the trap is in dealing with people, and you can micro that into dealing with people romantically, dealing with people intimately, or dealing with people in a big crowd, or dealing with people when it comes to confronting your own insecurities, or when it comes to the validation that you get or don't get in the world. So a lot of those things, I feel like for me has been the measure of my own personal growth has been how I've handled things that have made me feel less than, inferior, small, unable to be myself, or to express the version of me that I know I am, that I want to be, that I, no mental blocks or emotional blocks or physical blocks that say I cannot be who I am, how I am. And it sounds, I guess, easier said than done, because for me at least clearly, because some people say, yeah, be positive and you can change yourself. And when push comes to shove, a lot of people don't have the discipline to do that. A lot of people don't have the long-term vision to make it a lifestyle. And by that, I'm not talking about living a perfect life. Like I said, it's in alignment with where you are. And where you are isn't always the same place all the time. So you have to be willing to be flexible and be willing to shift and be willing to move through what comes up and what comes down. Most people want to stay like a statue in one position as if that's life, and that isn't life. That's not living. So coming out of your inner child shell and being able to learn from your elders, and being able to understand what the rules are, or being able to learn what the game is, or understanding what am I supposed to be doing here in this life called mine, that I think is my thing, and I'm supposed to be me, and what means to other people is very different than what me means to me. Like, I, for instance, find that, you know, the book that says think like a man, act like a lady, think like a man. I think I programmed myself to actually do that. I do tend to think like a man, but I act like a lady. Now, some men in my life may think or may want to call it differently. They might say, you act too masculine. Oh, I'm sorry. Is acting masculine, what is your definition of a woman that's acting too masculine? Is it one that challenges your thinking, or one that challenges your will, your strength, or one that challenges your capacity, physical capacity? Like, I get it, that is challenging, but isn't part of the game of life survival of the fittest? Like, isn't that what makes people stand out? Like, you know, like in the past, competition was real because it had to do with true merit. As it started to evolve, like in the military, as it started to evolve even in school systems, it was a system that, I guess you could say, based on what I experienced, like just like how my parents would have grown up, you know, how they were disciplined at home, made them soften up how they disciplined at home, and how they disciplined me at home made me want to be a softer parent than that for my children. But I can tell you that all it's led to is severe narcissism in some instance, not all, but that level of softness, not everyone respects. Not everyone sees it for the compassionate gesture that it is. Not everyone sees it as the protective measure that it is, because hard, challenge, difficulty, people's emotional ability to handle the stress is very weak in my personal experience. And I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about anyone. I'm talking about men, women, and children alike. And granted, I've seen some children have a more emotional durability, I guess you could say, maturity, than some elders. I've seen some elders that are quite much more physically capable than some younger generations. So you can see that the level of discipline of the past required actual provability of doability, where in the younger generations what you see is less is best, think smarter, not harder. But it also creates a level of certain kind of physical inabilities. Like, if everything's in concept in the physical, there's nothing of substance to show for. Like, okay, you could talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? Now, what I see is the integration of both of those realities for myself has been, I applied a lot of the lessons of the past. I took on a lot of the, I guess you could say, like, I took on the torch from the past, and I said, I can improve upon this, or I'm going to, you know, build upon this, however. But I've also seen how some ways of doing things are antiquated and are unnecessary. So I've also learned from the younger generations, like, wow, you know, they can do the same thing with less effort and even a better outcome. So then it's like, okay, I can apply this too. So now it's really just a matter of knowing how to balance those two worlds, and knowing how to, you know, put in the work when it's necessary to grow, pull back on the labor when it's futile to do so, when it's just busy work that is meant to give it an illusion of more is better. Like, if they see that I worked this amount of hours on this, if I show how hard I worked on it, then the value increases. On some instances, yes, but in many instances, no. If you're a service provider in a job that is very demanding physically, that makes you do a lot of movement or a lot of thinking or a lot of restricting emotionally, like, you can imagine how much restriction emotionally a nurse or a doctor would have to go through to not have the kind of empathy that makes you weak where you can't do your job. So restriction is necessary to some degree to do things, but it's just like bodybuilding. You have to know where the resistance is. You have to know where to increase the weights. You have to know when to slow down on the weights, because the goal isn't just to do one thing. The goal is to have a full integration of understanding that the mechanics of your being, of your essence, of your spirit is all inclusive of mind, body, soul, psychology, however you want to look at it. But it's a flow that's ever moving, and it's not always moving at the same pace. Like, that level of awareness in how you operate in your day-to-day isn't something that you can isn't something to tell someone, follow this system, because it's so moment by moment, person by person. It's such an individual process that the best way to teach is to be. Practice what you preach, be what you say you are. Have that integrity, as within, so without. And the results will show what works and what doesn't. So I think the measure of someone's authority, so to speak, is not just in, because someone, for example, can reach a conclusion quicker, but without the proper insight, the nuances behind things, like, something can look on the surface one way. For example, a woman can accuse her husband in court of whatever, of being a negligent parent or an abusive parent. And on the surface, it would equal to, he's a man, that's the norm, and we see this so many times. Okay, if we've seen it so many times, then it's the obvious answer, he's guilty. Like, without much time or energy into understanding case by case. Oh, because they're so busy in the system. Okay, well, that's what we have, I guess, lawyers for. Or your own self-defense would be, would provide the proper documentation to show how you stand out differently in this scenario. But for that, you have to have discipline. For that, you have to understand law. For that, you have to understand truth. For that, you have to have integrity. This has nothing to do with, oh, I'm just going to be smarter and produce this so it can look like that. Because if you're going to produce that, you need to be able to explain your way through it as well for it to make logical sense. What I've noticed is that karmic masculines will be easier to understand a logical conversation, even though they're a karmic masculine. They may understand it, but what they do with it, they pretend that they don't. They never want to show their cards. A karmic feminine, on the other hand, has a harder time understanding logic, because she can't even see beyond her feelings. So it's a lot more challenging to have any kind of conversation with a karmic feminine that that wants to see things how they want to see things. And if they want to believe that they're perfectly perfect and that they have no flaws and that, you know, they're right just because they say so, with no not being able to explain the logic behind that, it's going to be more difficult to prove the truth of it, even if intuitively she may know she's right because for whatever reason you initiated, or in terms of the masculine, for example, the masculine would have initiated the mistake or the wrongdoing. She could have said, I could have told you you were wrong, but how I tell you you're wrong makes me not even hear your logic. So in other words, the masculine might be able to see where they went wrong, but they won't admit it. And the feminine might know that they're wrong, but they don't know how to prove it. And I'm talking about the karmic masculine and feminine energies. I may not have even explained that very well myself, so, but like I said, candid conversation, just to have it, right? One moment. When you're dealing with a very masculine that may still have karmic tendencies, but at least is aware of their, you know, I guess you could say they're aware that they're able to see the synchronicities very well, but they're still too much in their ego. They don't know how to control their emotional self. They don't know how to take control of the body so that their actions match, you know, correct alignment. Correct alignment is sometimes you want to make things your way, and that's fine. You can make things your way as long as it's good for you, and as long as it's good for others, and as long as you know how to create the space for it. And that could be anything. Oh, you want to go build a house? Sure, go ahead. Go get the land and go build it. There's a lot. It's not as easy as just putting a little sign on an empty lot that you see. Sooner or later, the authorities come along and they say, do you have a permit for this land? How did you obtain it? And you have to show the paperwork. You have to be able to prove knowledge of what you're doing. Yes, in the old days, you could have gone anywhere, found a piece of land, built a house, and claim it as your own. Now you have landowners that you have to learn to show that you know exactly how they obtained the land. You know exactly what to do to build. I hope if it's a metaphor, I hope it's coming across how I'm trying to say it. It's not just, we're not just obviously talking real estate property here. We're talking in terms of even your own body, Divine Feminine. For example, you can have an emotion that goes against you, and you may not be conscious of it all the time. You may think, okay, I want to do this because I believe that this is going to make me happy. And you do something that you think is going to make you happy because you're expecting something on the outside to change to make you happy. right? Or you expect this outcome is going to be what makes you happy in regards to doing this thing. But when you do it, the outcome never shows you positive. It always shows you a negative. So that action that you took that you think is going to be a harmonizing action, based on that emotion or based on that feeling that your labeling will feel good. It's what it is, for example, let's say you think you're going to do something for someone that's going to make you feel good. Oh, I want to do this nice gesture for this person because I love this person. You do this nice gesture for this person, and that person doesn't receive it in that way positively as you envision they would. Whatever that is. You know, it could be a piece of bubble gum and you think they're going to smile and say thanks, but when you give it, they take it off your hand and then they throw it in the trash. They're like, ew, I don't like that. The expectation of one outcome and then always receiving, it's like you're getting the same results. You're not going to change this person's way of responding to the way that you give that. And whatever that is that you're giving, whether it's your time, attention, love, affirmation, gifts, whatever it is, however your love language, however you give your love to this person, they receive it without how they receive it. To them, they don't value that. That's not what they value. Whatever you give them is not what they value. They don't value it when you give it to them. The reason they take what you give them is because it is a benefit to them. It's a benefit to them, but it's not of the exchange that they return doesn't come across in the same way, because you're not giving for a benefit. You were giving as an exchange of reciprocity. And that giving of reciprocity in that person, they don't have that currency. That currency doesn't get used where they're from. That currency isn't part of their structure at this time. That doesn't mean stay there and continue to exchange with this person something that you can't use. Like, for example, okay, I have a ton of coins from the Dominican Republic. I have bills from Mexico. I can't really use that here in the United States to go to the store and buy food with it. So it's not that it's not of value. It has value, just not where I am. Okay? Just not where I choose to be. I could go over there and use it over there, and it'll be of value for me there. But is it worth the trip for me to go over there and use those funds over there? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I could do that. Would it cost me more to go over there just to use a currency there? Or would it be a benefit to me? That's up to you to decide. I hope I made that make sense. Anything else, folks? Okay. Oh. Wait. Something that a narcissist will never understand how the love diminishes little by little. because they don't have that to understand it. In other words, you know, if you give this person your whole deck, because in your world, your reality, or maybe it is delusional, right? Because someone would say, why would you do that? Why would you give so much of yourself to someone for nothing? Because love doesn't have a price in dollars or in the physical sense. It's the soul energy, because it's unseen, I guess, in some ways. Maybe it's not something that was ever questioned, could be withheld. Maybe the belief is everyone has a soul. Maybe the belief is everyone's soul's awake, conscious. But it isn't. And I think the spiritual implications that people don't see are so much deeper, that when you deal with a person like a narcissist, I'm of the camp that believes that the narcissist is just that energy has taken most of the space and has put to sleep most of the other aspects of the person's being. So it's a disintegrated being that's allowing itself to be used by this entity. And a lot of times it's not, I'm thinking, is it that they don't know? I think they know. They just don't have the maturity to face the fear. They lack the maturity to see what they don't want to see. They lack the understanding of the importance of what it is to see what they need to see. To accept one's darkness is the beginning of shadow work. The thing that they really, it's like to accept certain things of themselves. I'll tell you one that I had, and maybe this isn't the same in the physical way because it's a little bit more spiritual in its way. Like, I've contemplated existence, my own existence, as long as I can remember. And as a child, when I would imagine the story of this life no longer existing, like the way I perceive, the Tudor dynasty is nothing but in history, right? In a past that I never consciously experienced, as far as I know, that I never lived through, but I can put myself in those places and be like, wow, like, why do these stories matter to me? Why was it so impactful to me? How is it so personalized within me? Okay, so in spirit, some way, somehow, I can feel that I was there, but I don't have conscious recollection of it. I may have unconscious recollection of it. So for me, it was, the fear was so great of this life not existing anymore. And that, to overcome that fear, was what liberated me from identifying as just this life. And it opened up the doors to the spirit is timeless. And from that space of looking at people's conscious troubles in a way, like the problems people create for themselves feel futile, feel small, feel irrelevant in the larger scale of life. So I guess that's all, folks. I gotta go check on stuff. I'll come back. Take care.